Ladies and gentlemen, this is WeatherBrains episode number 604. The pre-show for Monday, August 14th. This is the magical time of the show where we share boring personal stories, humorous anecdotes, and we say outrageous things. Brian Peters, we can talk about him. He sent this rather odd note. He said, in fact, let me pull up his email here. Says, I have fleshed out the show notes for the episode tonight. I will not be able to participate. So what does that mean? He gave no excuse.
He's been mystical.
Well, I think he's going to come back and say, well, I was a poll worker. And he's done this over the years. There is a special election in our state tomorrow. And so my question to Brian, when does he get up? I mean, I get up before 5 every morning. I mean, I do this show every week. I mean, come on, man.
Well, you got all the pre-poll worker night exercises you have to do, get ready.
He's probably at the pole position down at Wesley's booby trap or something.
You have to be prepared to turn people away and to do voter fraud and things like that.
Oh, brother. Aubrey, can you hear us?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, wow.
Yes, ma'am. Loud and clear.
Earbuds on.
We're just, we're good here.
And I made it in early tonight.
You did. So you can share a boring personal story. This is the pre-show, that time of the show where we do that. I was just on some podcast after the 6 o'clock news. Let me see if I can get the name of this. It's kind of a local one to this market. It's called, where is it? Choose BHAM, Birmingham, an abbreviation for Birmingham. And it was their 4th episode. It's funny. They came up with this episode number 4. Wow. You guys are noobs.
Check back with us in 2 years.
How about 604? But they came in with the little mixer and mic. They did it right. I mean, they had the good stuff.
Wow.
Yeah, we're at 604.
We need Jeff Jarvis to be on the show, James. You think you could get him?
Maybe. I haven't, the last time I talked with him, I was on their show when Facebook shut me down. I was on This Week in Google.
A great article about, the death of the newspaper, which I think applies to all advertising medium.
Yeah, no. Story. Maybe a good one to get on here. I spent probably 5 years, maybe longer than 5 years. Remember that time Facebook just shut me down? They just shut me down on a weekend with no explanation. This was a Facebook page, and it didn't come back until I got on Leo's show with Jeff, and magically it just came right back. So
I've been climate related.
What?
The science is in.
Science. Who knows? So Leah Daly's going to be on the show. That's another former intern.
And she's on here now.
What? you know what? Her name is X-Ray. That's not.
I was
going to
ask about that in the questions.
Her real name is X-Ray.
Yes.
And she can explain that.
Good.
Somebody just says, is WeatherBrains on tonight? I don't see the pre-show.
Oh, well, that's good because we're here. Come say hello to everybody, James, since we're in the pre-show. Here's my coffee bearer, James. Bye, baby.
So, Leah, where are you? What is that behind you? You have curtains?
You'll never guess where she is. And it's not North Dakota.
Yeah, I'm in Tuscaloosa. I'm in my nephew's bedroom right now. I've got some football stuff on the walls.
Hopefully some Roll Tide stuff.
There actually is some
Oh,
Alabama
brother.
stuff, but I don't look at that. No.
Oh, I got to show y'all what came today.
Every time Bill goes on this Roll Tide thing, the Auburn people hate on me. See, I have to love everything and everybody. And you guys don't live in that world. Leah, do you love everything and everybody?
Absolutely not. Stage fine.
Oh,
It's stay all the way.
Look at their spam.
RTR.
That's your library card, Bill?
Yeah. 7 editions of it.
Better lock those up.
Yeah, really. They're going in the vault as soon as the show is over.
So, Leah, what are you doing in Tuscaloosa?
So I came down here for the Alabama State Maintenance Conference and was down in Montgomery for that from last Tuesday through Friday. And then anytime I can make a work trip, a personal trip as well, I squeezed in some family time. So I actually fly out tomorrow evening and I'll be back in Grand Forks then.
So do people in Fayette say that you sound like a Yankee now?
Oh, yeah. Anytime I'm down here, I sound like a Yankee. But when I have been down here and I go back up there, I sound like a Southerner. So
You're kidding.
So there's no hope. You have no hope. Yeah.
I pretty much,
Yeah,
I'm
man.
so close to Canada up there that it is quite the interesting Southern/Canadian accent. It's some weird stuff that goes on.
Hey.
Don't you know?
All right. Don't you know? We'll hold the good stuff here for the. We'll start in 2 minutes. We have to wait on the TV side here to join us, and then we'll get started. I feel like I haven't done something. I feel like that every week, though. It's okay. If I haven't done something, that it just didn't get done.
I didn't get to go back and listen to the interview spliced in. Did it splice in okay last week?
Yeah, it worked out very well.
It was a good.
I hated that she didn't get on the show with us because, but you did a great job. I mean, it was, and oddly enough, I really don't think I got a single piece of hate mail over that show. So that's,
I don't think you really could if you listen to it. I mean, it was very open-minded and.
right. But most of the people that do that, though, they don't even pay attention. They don't even listen. They just see your name and they just send you hate mail.
Yeah.
But not one piece. So that's good. In fact, we got many compliments on it. So we thank her for coming on the show. That was Dr. Judith Curry, who was on the show last week. And she had a bandwidth problem, so we couldn't get her video going and the audio just wasn't working. So what happened during the live bit we do here, Bill had to break away and go interview Dr. Curry on the telephone while we rambled aimlessly for 60 minutes. So, but it all worked out. So we're about to join the TV. Tony, how you doing, man?
I'm doing okay. How's my audio?
Clean as a whistle. Sounds good.
Finally sorted out that microphone problem.
That sounds good. Now, for a while, it sounded like you lost the high end in some of the audio, but now it's just perfect. It's good.
I didn't invite Kim Cloco.
Garbage
Hold
mic.
on a second. We got to get her in the mix here.
And hello, good evening, and welcome to our television viewers. This is WeatherBrains. This is episode 604. We are about to start the show here. And I do know the last couple of weeks on the television side, we have had some type of issue with bandwidth. We apologize. Hopefully that's going to be clean tonight. And if you are watching on television, keep in mind this is, by nature, this show is a podcast. It is really designed to be an audio podcast. Most people listen. We know you watch, but if you want to go back and listen, just subscribe in your favorite podcast app. And the replay, it's clean with no hitches in it. It's always up on weatherbrains.com. So there we go. So let's start this thing. We're going to turn on recorder number 1 and recorder number 2. And also for the, I'll talk about that in a second. Here we go in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. This is WeatherBrains episode number 604 for August 14th, 27. WeatherBrains is the weekly podcast all about weather. We gather together once a week. We've been doing this for about 11 or 12 years, and we are glad that you have decided to spend a little time with us. We know most of you listen, some of you watch, and we got a fun show coming up tonight. And let me just thank Bill Murray. Bill, you came in and broke away last week and did the audio interview by telephone with Dr. Curry. So that was a great interview. Thank you for your service, sir. You went above and beyond the call of duty.
Yeah, I missed all the rambling. I always enjoy the rambling, but it was a fascinating interview, and she was very, very fun to talk to, very eye-opening, James.
Yeah, and again, that's last week's show. And the thing is now, if you watch, you didn't see the Dr. Curry interview, if you watched it live or watched it the replay on YouTube. So that's only on the audio version. So another good reason to subscribe to weatherbrains.com. Brian Peters, the internationally beloved meteorologist, allegedly has to work tomorrow morning at some polling place. I guess he gets up before 10 a.m. and he says he can't stay up late to do WeatherBrains. So, but he is not on the show tonight. Where's Nate been lately? We didn't send a search party out to get this guy. He's
got kids. He's got like, what, 23 of them?
At least. That was the lovely Aubrey Urbanowitz. Look, I have been in that phase of life, and I totally understand. It is and I'll say this too, you blink and those years go by. I mean, you just, before you know it, those kids are graduating from high school. So spending time with your kids, putting them in the bed, reading a story, that's what life is all about. So Nate's in that phase of life. My boys are out of here, empty nesters. Aubrey, how you doing?
Good. How are you guys?
Good. So what's happening in Harrisonburg?
Just enjoying this nice weather. We're cloudy and cooler today, but it was nice. A little rain tomorrow. And I think by Wednesday and Thursday, we might actually feel like August. It has not been August here. It has been like September, like late September.
Yeah, we kind of missed this. Same thing down here. We typically are baking way up in the 90s, but it has been, for Alabama, it's been cool down here so far this August, mainly because of clouds and rain. So that's a good thing, and no drought this year. But Bill Murray, bring in our special guests because I can't wait to get this one started here.
Yeah, James, tonight's guest WeatherBrain grew up in Fayette, Alabama. She got her degree in broadcast meteorology at Mississippi State University. She's currently a weather operations and sales manager at Iteris Incorporated in Grand Forks, North Dakota. During her free time, she loves being outdoors with her fiance and two dogs. Leah Daly, welcome to WeatherBrains.
Hi. Hey, everybody. Thanks for having me. Such an honor to be on the show.
Well, it could be the worst 90 minutes of your life, Leah. So as we caution all our guests, be prepared to run. Or at any point, you could just disconnect and say the internet went bad. It works.
I'll keep that in mind.
But I hear your name is X-Ray. So what's the significance of that nickname?
Yeah, back in the day, 2007 is when I interned with James at ABC 3340. And we were looking for some interesting nicknames, but I happened to have a spelling mishap, and X-Ray kind of stuck there. So we don't have to get into the details on that.
No. Keep going. Explain. That's not good enough. Explain it.
I want to say it had something to do with, I was working at a vet clinic and I wrote X-ray on the board with an E-X-R-A-Y. And threw that information to James one day, just kind of like I had this blonde moment, and James loved it and decided I was now from then on X-Ray.
It's kind of like lightening, It was Leah's lightening moment where she spelled it with that extra E in there. So that was slightly awesome. What year was this, Leah? I forget. Was it 2006? You say?
I know that I can.
Which year was it again?
2007.
Wow. 10 years ago. Goodness, how time flies. We should do a book on Bill on the past interns that have come through this office. We've had some good ones. So.
Yeah, that's for sure. There've been some personalities through there. So, Leah, we're glad to have you on the show tonight. I know you're excited because our guest panelist is going to talk about the eclipse tonight, and you're going to be involved in the eclipse up close and personal. So let's welcome Tony Rice, our resident astronomer, who is here 1 week out from the Great American Eclipse to tell us everything we need to do and not do. So, Tony, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me back. You guys haven't learned. You keep inviting me back.
Well, Tony, it's just 1 week till this crazy thing. So
I'm tired.
I know I'm already tired too, and I'm just worrying about the weather for my spotting location. So we can't wait to hear you. But strap in as a guest panelist for a minute and get ready to ask Leah some questions here.
Yes, sir.
And then we'll get around to you here because I know Leah wants to hear a lot of what you have to say too. So welcome here tonight. And joining us at the last minute because of my I don't know, inadequacy or something. I just have not added Kim yet to our email list. And Kim, I promise I'm going to do that. And then I just don't know where all the time is going. You know, we've got this Weather Fest coming up in Anaheim at the National Weather Association. And, you know, it was one of these things where, you know, when all the time you were, you know, you should have been preparing and building and doing, we were still trying to nail down sponsorships. And so, I mean, it literally at the end of July was looking like this might not happen. When our friend Henry Rothenberg from Nashville came up with an amazing set of $10,000 sponsorships for us, and WeatherFest is on. But now we have 4 weeks to pull all the exhibitors together. The stage show is being built. The rally for the Young Meteorologist program is being put together. So, you know, we put out a call to all the NWA members today, you know, sort of an emergency call, but it's really important right now that get in touch with me. You know, if you can suggest anybody that could be a last minute exhibitor, anybody that could be a volunteer, if you just want to come and help, make your travel plans to be in Anaheim on that Friday the 15th, because Saturday the 16th, this event's going to go from 10 to 4, and it's going to be huge. We're expecting between 7,000 and 9,000 people, and it's going to be fun. Scott Martin, you know, who works on the Alabama WX blog, has done another superior job putting the passport together. So we're targeting it today and tomorrow for tsunamis and earthquakes and, you know, wildfires and things we didn't have to deal with in Norfolk. So that was more than you wanted to hear. But Kim, we're glad you're on the show with us tonight.
Thanks. I'm glad to be here.
So what's going on in your world, Kim?
Right now, the lab is actively engaged in trying to put together some proposal ideas to carry forward the facets work, which I know that you guys have talked about some on your show. So it's been really fun for me to be part of a really big effort like that. This is kind of my first time trying to put together a really big proposal and with an interdisciplinary team. And I have to say, the folks here at the Severe Storms Lab and SIMS at OU generally have been truly wonderful to work with and very, very supportive of the social and behavioral science contribution that we're trying to bring to the project. Just today I was blown away in a meeting where they could have fought for more funding for their part of the work, and they were really fighting for us, and it was truly amazing to see. This is an exciting program, and I'm very fortunate to be a part of it. So that's kind of what's going on in this corner.
Hey, James, you sound so professional always. It's just really, it's really making all of us look bad.
Yeah, and she's got this board back here. For those that are listening, Kim's got this big board back behind her with all, it looks like equations. You know, she's been deriving the vorticity equation on here. I mean, it really looks good. Where all of us, we've got nothing back here, you know? Wow.
Yeah, exactly. It's that or It's Fun with Flags by Sheldon Cooper. Which it is, but we're so glad you're here, Kim. And tonight, Kim meet Leah Daly, who works with, and I hope I'm saying this right, Leah, you can correct me, iTerrace?
iTerrace, correct.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
A private weather forecasting firm out of North Dakota. So now you guys have met, and we can get on with things. So Kim, if you would just slide your head a little to the right, we can get a screen grab of what the board is saying there.
Secret ideas, secret research.
Maybe we've solved the key to the warnings problem if you will just help us out there. So,
Sure.
all right, Kim, tune up all those good questions you always ask, and we'll get started here. So Leah, talk about iTerrace and what you guys do, and you know, what's it like to be an Alabama girl up in North Dakota?
Yeah, so First off, I moved back in 2011 and for 6 years now. Quite the change. I know everybody always asks me, why did you move to North Dakota from Alabama? And as meteorologists, we all know you got to go where the jobs are, and that's where it led me. I actually first started off doing weather modification in western North Dakota, and that was doing some cloud seeding. It was just a summer program, and then after I did that for the summer, I went back up to visit North Dakota games and kind of see a little bit of what the winter was like, and I ended up getting a job with Iteris, and then I just started kind of moving on up in the company and doing a lot of different roles. I forecasted for them, and we actually have a 24/7 weather operations center where we forecast for all across the country, and it's mainly for Department of Transportations. So we're forecasting for state DOTs so that they can get information, not just what the weather's going to do, but how is it going to? We have a pavement model that we developed in-house. It's called our high caps model, and it takes into account mass and energy onto the road surface, and we also configure routes. So we have different products that we ask the Department of Transportation, several states that we work with, which routes, what areas that you want us to forecast for. They give us information about those routes all the way down to what is that? The traffic level on that route? What's the level of service? How aggressive do they need to run the route? Believe it or not, most routes in Alabama, when it snows, you got to be all hands on deck. But in North Dakota, they actually have some roads that they may not maintain for maybe 24 hours. So some of the more rural routes aren't quite as aggressively maintained. They don't have to get to those right away, sure that they hit up the end of the busier roads there. So, so we take that information and we provide them a weather forecast and a pavement forecast, and it goes out 48 hours. We also do a little bit of long term, but more of the 48 hours is for the pavement forecast, and that gives them when is the weather going to impact the road, how is that temperature of the pavement going to change, and that condition going to change. So they better maintenance decisions on when should they send their, what material should they. A lot of states use more than just salt. They need to know if it gets below 15 degrees, sometimes salt doesn't work as well as other chemicals, or being able to enhance that salt with different chemicals that are out there, such as Apex. There's like liquid chemicals that they'll squirt the actual salt with, or a sand salt mixture, and then put that on the roadway. And also it depends on the terrain, in order if they need more grip, or an area that may have blowing snow pretty often. If they put just salt down, it can blow that snow across the road, stick to the salt, and cause more problems to begin with than if they would have just went out there and just plowed that snow off. So we take it into more of roadway level, and so giving them recommendations based upon what our forecast is and what we see the weather's going to be changing. We'll give them recommendations on what type of material to put down. Now they tell us what type of material that they typically use during different temperature thresholds and situations, but we will give them, this is 200, 300 pounds of salt per lane mile for this route at such and such time. So they use that, and some states use our recommendations.
Hello.
Back to the payphone.
We've had some bandwidth problems. Bill, you might have to go to. Well, what's happening? She's dropping like every 60 seconds for about 5 seconds, then it gets longer every time. But she's totally gone now.
It's a long way up there.
I think some bonehead in some other room up there sucking up all the bandwidth playing some video game or something. But she's totally gone now.
Her nephew is taking up all the bandwidth.
Knucklehead's back there playing whatever the hit video game of the day is. Yeah, let's talk with Tony. We might have to just do the talk with her again on the phone, Bill. I'd hate to do it 2 weeks in a row, but so it goes.
Yeah, Tony. 1 week till this thing. Now I'm set for Greenville, South Carolina, which USA Today did me a great favor by saying it was one of the best places to go see the eclipse. And I'm sweating the weather forecast now. Have you looked at the country as a whole across the path of totality?
I have, and I've seen a couple different views of things, and they are more or less polar opposites. So I choose to wait a little bit longer. I'm not a big fan of the 7-day anyway. Especially for something like this.
I've been pulling every model run of the GFS and the European since we were within range and watching it. So I'm cautiously optimistic for Greenville, South Carolina.
It's a beautiful place too. You really enjoy Greenville. It's a
so if you had to pick a spot in Greenville, would you go to the park? Where would you go, Tony? In that we're down on the river.
Boy, yeah, down on the river is awfully nice. Downtown, there's lots of real nice little restaurants and such down there, and there's a kind of a gathering area where I recall seeing some concerts down there. So it's a nice place. But I'm curious to hear your thoughts on that position there along the Appalachians. Good or bad thing with the clouds?
Well, it's going to be interesting. You look extensively at what's going on. You can't really see any signs of why, except for a broad southwesterly flow that may be developed by that time. And maybe that will help us with the Appalachians, but could be certainly very moist. And I'm a little concerned about that. But, more and more I see hope. So I guess I'd rather be in Northwest Tennessee, Western Kentucky, Southeastern Missouri, Southern Illinois. What do you think?
Boy, that was the spot to go based on some of the climate studies. But I saw it was some GFS cloud model that kind of looked inverted. It kind of looked like some of the places that were thought to be the places to go might be clouded out. I still think you guys are the experts, but I still think it's too early to get too wound up about it.
So we're just I'll jump off of a bridge on Monday when I'm in the wrong spot. So, Tony, what do you really think these traffic things are overblown, or is this really going to be a gigantic gridlock over the entire 70-mile stretch of this thing across the country?
Across the entire stretch, no. But I mean, if we think back to the one in the 1970 that went up through Georgia and the Carolinas, there was traffic jams back then. We think about the one in 79 that was up in the Pacific Northwest. There's traffic jams then. What's different since then? Well, we got a few more TV channels. We've got social media. So people know about this. And it's going through an area of the country. I'm particularly worried about South Carolina. It's going through an area of the country. Your areas, maybe not so much. You're going to have the Southland streaming into that part of South Carolina. But where I'm going to be off of I-95, think about where the population center is. You got all of Florida to the south. You got all of the rest of the Carolinas and Virginia and up into D.C. They're going to look at that and say, hey, that's day trippable. Well, maybe it is any other day, but I think we're going to see some parking lots. I mean, you see that on a good day.
On I-95, yeah.
Yeah, I'm thinking back to family and I went down. My son had a band trip down competition in Jacksonville, Florida, and on the way back, we're driving back up, and this is I want to say this was New Year's Day, and there was a standstill of traffic about every 20 miles on 95 South. It was probably the snowbirds coming in, especially judging from the trailers I saw. And the motorhomes, but just that kind of traffic can create standstills on 95. Think what's going to do next week.
So Tony, talk us through a basic checklist of the things that we need to make sure we have with us as we go to watch the eclipse.
Well, getting the traffic woes checklist out of the way. I can't remember which Met came up with it, and they definitely deserve credit here, but basically approaching this like you would a hurricane. basically approaching this like you got to skedaddle out of town for whatever reason, and you need to have enough, provisions. You need to have enough water and certainly fuel in the car to deal with those kinds of traffic issues. That aside, you need to remember you're going outside, and there's going to be a lot of people who probably don't spend a whole lot of time outside that are going to be tramping out into parks and such. Some basic first aid kit might not be a bad idea, but sunscreen. Don't forget sunscreen. Yes, the moon is going to cover up the sun, but it's still going to be there. And totality is only going to last a maximum of 2 minutes 40 seconds, and that's if you're lucky enough to be in Carbondale, Illinois. Other than that, it's going to be anywhere between a minute and 2.5 minutes. But the rest of the time, that's an almost 3-hour window of the partial eclipse. Got to have some sunscreen. Certainly don't want to forget your eclipse glasses, and we probably ought to talk about availability of eclipse glasses and some issues that have cropped up with the eclipse glasses, particularly those that were sold through Amazon.com. You don't want to forget those. Something I would recommend you leave at home is your camera. We all would love to get some great pictures of this eclipse, but the recommendation that you're going to hear from most people that have taken pictures of eclipses before is you're not going to do it until you've got some pretty high dollar equipment, really, really prepared ahead of time, and have the, here's my my $12 eclipse filter that I'm going to try on my camera, so I'm not going to follow my own advice. But there's going to be a lot of people that are taking what they think are some great pictures, and they very well may waste that 2.5 minutes of watching the eclipse and experiencing it. They may waste it by screwing with their camera.
So you think the experience of just watching your surroundings is probably just as important as looking at this disk across the sun? Absolutely, because there could be some great pictures of this eclipse. I would venture to say, and I'm not the first one to come up with this chestnut, but this is going to be the most photographed eclipse in history. And the chances of you getting a good one with your iPhone are about nil. The chances of you getting a really good picture of your friends and family in the silly eclipse glasses enjoying this, that's a pretty good chance. Take pictures of the environment around you. Take pictures of that sunset that's going to appear in 360 degrees around you if you're lucky enough to be in totality. Take pictures of that and leave the other ones to download that night from NASA.gov and such. So James, are you taking the day off just so you can retweet all the pictures that you get?
Yeah, no, I'm glad Tony said that, because what's going to happen. Everybody's going to be so worried about they're going to get their little phone out here and they're going to be taking pictures, and they're going to miss the whole thing. There will be 10 jillion pictures by really good photographers with really good equipment that know how to do it. You don't need to worry about that. Just enjoy the moment. Like Tony says, you got a minute or two, and that's it, right at the peak of this thing. So just don't miss it. Enjoy it. Put the phone down. Relax. And yeah, we're going to get, like, I do agree, this will be the most photographed eclipse ever, now that everybody's got one of these phones in their pocket. But don't waste your time on it. And I will pick the greatest pictures of all time and put them out on the tweeter. You won't miss them, I promise.
So here's some math for you. iPhone. The field of view, depending on your model, is somewhere between 50 degrees and 75 degrees. The moon and the sun are the same width. That's the reason the total eclipse works. Same apparent diameter in the sky, half a degree. So do the math. In that iPhone photo that you are lovingly going to put on your Christmas card because you think you got a great picture, that iPhone photo, you could fit between 100 and 150 eclipses across it. So it's just going to be a little blob of a couple of pixels. Even if you put a filter over it, it's just not going to work. Just don't bother.
Now, Leah, that's not what you wanted to hear, because you're backpacking into the Tetons to see this thing. So you're looking for some good pictures. So tell us about how you're going to view the eclipse.
Well, my plan is, I've never been to the Tetons before, so I wanted to make sure I went somewhere that was within driving distance, and it's about 10-15 hours drive, so it's a long way, but I think it'll be definitely worth it. And then if it is cloudy and we don't get to see it, then we are getting to experience a great place to camp and have a little vacation out of it as well. So worst case scenario, we'll just enjoy our camping and our backpacking.
Well, if you came for a photographic advice from Tony, it probably wasn't what you expected, but it probably was good advice, I would imagine.
Well, I can always point you to some really good advice if you want to give it a shot. But it's all about setting all this up ahead of time. So, again, you can enjoy it.
So Tony, why don't you do that? Why don't you share a little bit of your knowledge of the photography side of it? What do you need to do if you're going to try to catch it?
There's a number of pieces of software out there that will control your camera that I'll tweet out later. You can follow me at RTP Hokie, RTPHOKIE. I'll tweet that out later so that you've got the links there. But basically, the different phases of the eclipse is going to require some very different settings on your camera. And that's because of the changing light, especially once it goes in totality, because you're just going to be viewing the corona at that point, and it's quite a bit dimmer than the photosphere, of course. And that's when you're going to be taking your filters off and taking pictures of just the chromosphere without your filters in the way. So each one of those phases is going to require very different aperture settings, speed settings, and there are some people who have done this enough and jotted down the settings that they've used in the past that those are great to reuse. So I'll send out a tweet with those information about that. So if you want to give it a shot, knock yourself out. Personally, I'm just going to be hopefully getting a nice array of the progress of the eclipse from the beginning of the partial eclipse through. I'll pull the filter off, get as much as I can with the corona without the filter, and then get the rest of it. The other thing that can be kind of disappointing, I hear from every photographer who's ever taken time to photograph this, is it's going to frustrate you in that you look back at the pictures and it just doesn't look like what your eyes showed you. And I think anybody that's ever taken a picture, regardless of their experience, can relate to that. But it's really, really something that you'll think about when you see the corona. It's incredibly dynamic. The darks and the lights and the shadows, very hard to reproduce with a camera.
So Tony, there are probably must-see, must-do things you need to look for, like the Bailey speeds and the wedding ring effect and the first contact. And explain all those to us real quick, what we need to be looking for and the things we need to try to make sure we see or do. Right.
So all these things are occurring right around the point of totality. So there's 4 contact points. C1 is when the partial eclipse begins. C2 is when the total eclipse begins. C3 is the end of the total eclipse, and then C4 is the end of the partial eclipse. So whenever you've gone online and looked at some of the descriptions of the local circumstances, it's called, that show these timings, you'll see those letters, and that's what all of those mean. So let me bring up a list here real quick that has all of these cool things. 1 second. Get them right. Find it.
And by the way, Leah, while Tony's doing that, your bandwidth went zilch. We had you about every 60 seconds. You drop, and then you drop, and then finally you just went for good. So we figured some bonehead is playing video games in there.
Wait, that could be right. That could be right.
Tell the knucklehead to go take a walk in the park or something and get off the internet.
I will have to do that.
Watch the replay. No, don't watch the replay of the Alabama Clemson game. That's not very good.
So in a nutshell, you got the first contact, that's C1. You're going to be watching that sun turn into a crescent sun. And that's a little weird to think about. I mean, we normally think about the crescent moon, but that's exactly what's happening here. About 15 minutes before totality, that's when you start looking around. You start looking at your environment. That's about the point where 80% of the sun is covered. And you're going to start noticing light levels go down. What's really interesting, though, from an atmospheric point of view, is you look around you and the landscape turns this kind of bluish grayish, even purplish. They'll start moving towards the purples. And that's, I think, especially going to be noticeable this time because this eclipse occurs so close to solar noon. We're going to be looking through less atmosphere than we would during some of the other eclipses that have occurred during sunrise or sunset. So you don't have as much of that reddening of the atmosphere as you would. This is a good time to start looking around at how the environment is reacting. How are animals reacting? Are the birds getting quiet? They probably will start getting quiet. If you've got family pets with you, they might start freaking out a little bit. So that's something to look out at that point. And it's basically instinct that nightfall's coming. And any animals that know that, it's not supposed to be nightfall at 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon, they might freak out a little bit. Look towards the western horizon. And in the Tetons, you're probably going to have a pretty cool vantage point. Hopefully the weather will cooperate with you and you can see this, but the higher you get, the more you should be able to see that approaching shadow, the umbral shadow that's moving towards you. And the higher you are, you might even be able to see some shape to it. You might be able to see some of that round shape. So that shadow is going to be moving towards you. The average across the continental United States is a little over 1,700 miles an hour. The closer you are to the West Coast, the faster it's going. I think it hits the coast of Washington on the order of 2,400 miles an hour. And by the time it makes it to Charleston, South Carolina, it's slowed down quite a bit because of the orientation of the moon and the sun, and also the fact that the Earth is rotating faster as you get closer to the equator. So by then, it's going about 1,500 miles an hour. Still pretty fast. If you got a nice high vantage point, you should be able to see that. So that's something to look towards. You look towards the western horizon. That's about 5 minutes before totality when you should start seeing that. The comparison I've heard some say is it looks like there's a big thunderstorm coming towards you, but it's a silent thunderstorm. You're not going to hear any. You're not going to hear any thunder, of course. Well, hopefully, we won't be hearing thunder that day. We shall see. And this is about the point where the temperature starts going down. Now, there's different figures that have been thrown around on how much the temperature will go down. It really depends on the weather that day and where that dew point is. But let's say 5 to 10 degrees Celsius ballpark. I've heard as much as 20, but that's in more dry climates. But it is noticeable. You can feel it on your skin. Something that we don't know a whole lot about that is one of the citizen science projects that's being brought about is something that you can participate in is the shadow bands. Sometimes they're called shadow snakes. And what you're seeing is that edge of the light dark part of that shadow moving through the atmosphere. So especially in August, I would think that heat rising over the land, depending what parts it goes over, if it's going over water or heavily populated areas with concrete and that sort of thing, we're going to be seeing those ripples come up, and it actually will look like moving snakes on the ground if you look closely enough. So maybe that's another thing that you should put in your list to pack is something white, a big white sheet, maybe a poster board or something like that. Put that on the eastern side, opposite where the eclipse is going to be coming, and look out for those shadow bands. So about 15 seconds before totality begins, that's when you get this real thin crescent. And that's when the corona will start to emerge. You can start seeing that outer atmosphere of the sun. And at that point, and there's been some questions about the order of this. So the order of the diamond ring effect and Bailey's beads is that. The diamond ring effect comes first. What you're actually seeing is those Bailey beads kind of merge together because of the brightness and the fact that there's still so much of the sun that's visible. As that starts to go away, as the diamond ring effect goes away, and what that is a single point of light, very, very bright, surrounded by the beginnings of being able to see the corona. It will look like a diamond ring hanging in the sky. After that point, when the sun's just down to a sliver, about 3 seconds before totality begins, and this is where you got to pay close attention or you'll miss it, is that's when the Bailey's beads appear. So Bailey's beads are actually little points of light that are streaming through the valleys along the limb of the moon. So the moon isn't smooth. It looks that way to us, but if you've ever looked at the moon through a telescope, you can see that there's a topography to it. So that last little bit of light that's coming through those various valleys and craters and such, those are called the Bailey's beads. They only last a couple of seconds, and then totality begins. And that's when you, after the Bailey's beads are complete, look back down at the ground, lift your glasses up briefly to look down at the ground, and see if you can see that shadow coming towards you. If you're high enough and you have a good clear vantage point in front of you, you should be able to see it moving towards you. And that's when that second contact begins. And that's when the moon has moved in completely in front of the sun. And you can take your eclipse glasses off at that point. You can view it without any of the eye protection. That's, you should, or you're not going to see anything because it's quite a bit dimmer at that point. And again, you're going to have, the closer you are to the center line of the eclipse, you're going to have closer to 2.5 minutes. If you're out closer to one of the edges of the line, it could be less than a minute. The thing to watch for at the end of totality is for that opposite side of the moon to start brightening up again. Once you see that, that's your sign to get your glasses back on, so you don't get a surprise, a retinal damaging surprise. So keep an eye out for that. And everything that I just mentioned going up to this, it happens in reverse. So if you missed Bailey's beads, or if you missed that diamond ring for some reason, you got another chance to see it on the opposite side.
This is really incredible stuff, Tony. Thank you for explaining all of that. You mentioned the retinal damage. We were in a restaurant in Oxford, Alabama, Friday night, and the waitress just started going on and on about the eclipse coming, and the schools were going to let out that day early, and blah, blah, blah.
Did that make you feel good, though, that people were talking about this?
It does, but she says, you know, as long as you have a pair of polarized sunglasses, you're just fine. And I just about threw up my lasagna at that point.
Yeah, that's still happening.
I probably frightened the poor woman, because I was
good.
coming out of my shoes, like, no, I'm afraid we got a serious potential problem developing.
Yeah, Nate sent me an email the other day. He still does exist. He's still kicking. I hear from him every once in a while. But he sent me an email that a viewer had sent in, commenting that one of the local drugstores here, and I'll protect the I'll not say the name to protect the guilty, but they'd overheard somebody come in looking for eclipse glasses, which are gone in our area. But that's another topic. And the clerk had led them back to the sunglasses. Says, "Oh, these will work fine."
Oh, please.
Yeah.
That scares me immensely. So yeah, the state hospitality conference in Alabama is being held next week, and so it goes Saturday through Thursday. And they didn't put any eclipse time in, and they booked it right. They booked the scholarship luncheon right in the middle of the eclipse, and they wrote me and they said, "Hey, we hear there's this eclipse," and I was like, you should have checked with me, because you got to build some time in for everybody to go see this. They're not going to sit through a luncheon when we are at 99.4% in Birmingham or whatever it is. Going to be really close, at least. It won't be the same as being in the path of totality, but it's still going to be something people want to see. And I said, you're going to have to go buy 400 pairs of eclipse glasses, because you need to provide, a way for everybody to see it safely. So I hope they bought the right ones, Tony. And so you said there've been some recalls and problems.
Yeah, there have been. Over the weekend, Amazon.com sent out emails to quite a number of their customers regarding several eclipse glasses that were for sale on their site that did not meet the standards, either just flat out didn't meet the standards and they never should have been there in the first place, or claimed to meet the standards and did not. It was a variety of different issues there. So the good news is all those people who received those emails got refunds and were told to promptly throw their eclipse glasses in the trash. The bad news is they received this, a week and a couple of days outside of the eclipse, And I did some spot checks of a number of meteorologists that I send a weekly email to with all things astronomical, and just kind of spot checked around the country to see how sales were going, or were they available, were they not available. And as you might expect, the closer you get to the path of totality, the harder it is to get these things. I understand down there in your neck of the woods in Alabama, you can still find them a couple of places. Here in Raleigh, forget it. They're gone. I'm hearing from the local Home Depot and Lowe's, where they had quite a few of them, that they're not expecting any more in. Maybe they'll get them, maybe they won't. The local science museums that were anticipating this and got as many as they could, they're trying to get some more in and are really having trouble. So when I hold up this block of 100 of them right here,
put them back in the vault, Tony.
I probably ought to put those back in the vault. Those are 200 of those are going to a high school tomorrow, and I actually have in my hot little hands right now about 300 pairs of glasses. They're all spoken for. They're all going to schools in various places around here. I've given out personally.
Check this out. Check this out, Tony. So this is Amazon.com. And several weeks ago, you could buy this product for, I think, $4 or $5. This is a 5-pack of these things. Look really carefully with the prices for those watching. $99.95, $100 for a 5-pack of these things. I mean, somebody's making some serious dough on this deal.
So sitting on my desk right here, I probably have my kids' college education. That kind of person. But no, I will go drop them off at a school, and hopefully somebody will learn a little something in the process.
Well, I know our school system is, providing glasses for the older kids, but they're not going to even let the smaller children out because of safety concerns. They're going to watch it on television.
Yeah, and there's some of that going on around here. There's an elementary school that I work with that I outfitted the entire school with glasses, and some of the younger grades, they're going to base it on the kids themselves and whether they think they can handle it or not. But there's lots of other ways that it can be watched. The pinhole projector is always a good one, but some of those kids you just can't trust not to look up at the sun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you
our future leaders.
Yeah, exactly. So pinhole projector, quick, easy way how to make one, Tony?
Quick, easy way to take pinhole projector is a piece of cardboard, thicker the better, smaller the hole the better. You're going to get a better image that way. But the really cool way to do it, I'll tweet this out later too, is the cereal box. Take you a cereal box, take you a UPS box, FedEx box, whatever. Seal it all back up. Cut a white piece of paper out to fit the bottom. Shove that out down in the bottom. Cut squares on the opposite end on each end. Cover one of those with a piece of tinfoil. Take your pin, again, poke that as small as you can. Look through the other hole, and it makes a fantastic projector. You put the sun over your shoulder, and it creates a really, really sharp image. The cool thing about that, you don't go out once and look at this. This is an event that lasts nearly 3 hours. So you want to go about every 10 or 15 minutes or so and watch it get the sun get eaten away more and more and more.
So Tony, I heard it described that the difference between being in the path of totality and just seeing the eclipse, even at 95, 99%, is like the difference in being in an airplane and jumping out of an airplane. Would you say that's true?
Yeah, I've heard that too. And the line that's being uttered around here, where we're in 92 point and some change percent, is this is not 92% of the experience. It's not even close. You're not going to experience the same environmental changes. You're not going to experience the same temperature changes. But most importantly, you're not going to see the corona. You're not going to see the corona. The sky's not going to get dark. That's what I neglected to point out too. The astronomical features that are going to come out during that point of totality. You're going to see 4 planets with your own eyes. You're going to see Venus and Mercury that you've probably never seen before unless you've really been out there looking for them. But the really, really cool thing about it is all these planets are going to be in a line, and that line is going to be tilted to match the tilt of the Earth. So you're going to see the tilt of the Earth's axis right before you, and you're also going to see the plane of the solar system. All these planets orbit on roughly about the same plane, plus or minus a couple of degrees. That's all going to be right there before your eyes. The stars are going to come out, and those planets that you've never seen before are going to come out.
So Tony, in Greenville, the local time, the team, the Greenville Drive, which James you will appreciate because they have a replica park to Fenway there because they're a Red Sox affiliate, is going to have their baseball game at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, which I thought was interesting. So they're going to stop during the totality, but won't they have to turn the lights on for a good bit of the game?
Ooh, that's a good question. As it gets, closer to totality, within the last half hour or so, I imagine they might have to turn the lights on. I hope they can get them out.
Tony, I got a question today from the Football Operations Guide, a large college football program nearby, and they've got a football practice scheduled during this thing.
Okay.
And so when do you think they would? And again, where we are, about 92% coverage. How long do you think they need the lights there? And what do you advise the coach?
I advise the coach to hold off on practice for a couple hours. Sit his players down.
This coach, by the way, this coach doesn't do this.
Education.
Bill Murray knows the coach I'm talking about.
Tell him not to look up. Nobody look up.
I can guess. I suppose you could get those lights on, but if you wanted to actually see totality, you got to get those lights out. And I imagine some of those stadium lights are a little hard to wind down. It takes them a few minutes to dim. So I wonder what your baseball team is going to do there. But your football team, James, they need to sit on the bench and enjoy a little science for a few hours, don't you think?
I think so, but trust me, the coach of this program would disagree.
Yeah, I know that's
he's about to kick off and play.
To the SEC guy.
Tell him it'll help with their SAT scores. Or something like that. So anyway, Tony, what else? What have we not asked? Kim Cloco, what have we not asked Tony that we need to ask?
Man, I don't know. This has been so incredibly interesting. And as you've been talking about all the different phenomena that one will experience, I've been looking them up, learning a lot. I actually, I'm kind of jealous of all you people who are going to be able to see it really well. I wanted to go. Now I'm just increasingly jealous.
We ain't there yet. We ain't under clear skies yet.
That's true. That's true. My plan was to go to Nebraska. So if Beatrice, Nebraska is gorgeous, then I'm going to be sad. But there was no way I could break away. That's 2 days before our proposal's due. And my fiance didn't want to go. It's making me question the decision that I've made. I don't know if is this got the right taste. But anyway, no, I think that you have done an amazing job talking about all the different things that are experienced. When was the last time that there was an eclipse like this experienced in our country?
Across the entire CONUS, we're talking close to 100 years. And we'll next see one that's even close to this. Actually, it's not that far away. 2024 is going to be one that runs up through Texas and out through Maine. So again, that Carbondale, Illinois, they're lucky there. They get two of them. The two are going to form like an X. So as I've done talks around Raleigh, North Carolina, I try to point out when we're actually going to have totality, so that nobody thinks that they can just sit back and we'll wait for a total one to come through here. 2078 here. So
wow,
that's fine for the kindergartners I'm talking to, but the older folks, I don't think we'll quite make it that far.
But I think the biggest takeaway.
Tony Rice came and talked to us about the eclipse in 2078.
I think the biggest takeaway I've heard, Tony, is that, again, where we are, we're kind of like you. We're 92, 93%. Right. You're saying absolutely, if you can, drive into the totality of this thing and don't get the sideshow.
And do it Sunday, not Monday.
Yeah, anywhere but Greenville, South Carolina.
And don't drive on Monday. Do it on Sunday.
Right.
Don't do it on Saturday. Saturday's bad. That's the day I'm
talking. And again, let me. And the problem is, a lot of people listen to this show 4, 5, 6 days. They might be listening to it, Eclipse Eve here, but we're doing the show a week away from the eclipse on August the 14th, and some of the. I say this all the time. The weather enterprise seems to attract narcissists, thinking they can do no wrong and make no mistake. But as a guy that's been doing this for 39 years, let me tell you, a forecast 7 days in advance can and will change. And for those that are watching live and listening live, just pay close attention to cloud cover forecast. And for people in the southeast United States, we deal with these air mass storms. You can have a raging thunderstorm at the minute this thing should peak. In one spot, 5 miles down the road, you can see everything. And there is no skill in identifying the location of these air mass storms in advance, even the morning of the eclipse. So you got to be willing to kind of roll with the flow. Yeah, exactly. And again, the problem is you might not be able to do that if the crowds are as big as some think they're going to be. So.
The best question I've gotten so far about this eclipse too came from Nate Johnson's mother. Her question was, why can Tony tell me down to the 10th of a second when this eclipse is going to be, and you can't tell me if it's going to be cloudy or not?
That's the difference in astronomy and meteorology, ladies and gentlemen, right there.
We're all scientists, though.
Leah, you're going to...
I'd like to ask, too, at the intersection of astronomy and meteorology, I know that there are some groups that are going to be taking sophisticated measurements of things like air temperature perturbations during the eclipse. I know the Oklahoma Mesonet plans to take 1 minute data and be monitoring it closely. And I don't know if you know of other field projects that might be going on.
Oh, there's a number of field projects out there, and I'm trying to think of some of the specifics off the top of my head. But I know one we can all go back and bathe in the data later is going to be Ghost 16. Boy, I just got access to some of that that close to live data today and started playing with it. That's going to be amazing, just to see the shadow going across. But some of the other more in-depth measurements that can take as well. One really interesting citizen science project, shifting a little bit more towards astronomy, that's going to be really fun is there's a number of universities that are going to be repeating what's called the Eddington experiment. So back in the early 1900s, I forget exactly the year that's occurred. I want to say it was the 1920s sometime. There was a British astronomer by the name of Eddington who put together an expedition where he put a number of observers on the coast of South America and a number on the coast of Africa, because there was a total eclipse that was going across the Atlantic Ocean. The sole purpose of this was to photograph the eclipse, specifically to look for shifts of stars. So there's a phenomenon called gravitational lensing, where space-time is actually curved around a large body, a large mass like the sun, and stars that should be behind the sun suddenly appear on the edges. And what this did was prove Einstein's theory of relativity. And they're going to recreate that project here in 2017. Really looking forward to seeing some of those photographs.
So Leah, you're going to be heading to the Tetons. Any questions you want to ask Tony?
Well, one thing that I'm really interested in and excited about is, what is the wildlife going to do? We're actually taking our 2 dogs with us, and I just wonder what their reaction is going to be. Are they going to howl? Are they going to act like nothing's going on? And then should I be concerned with, crickets chirping, bats flying around? Like, I hear some of those kind of things. Like, any wildlife that's in the area, is that going to make them go crazy?
Well, your guess is as good as mine. I'd love to hear back what you find out there and what you experience. What's so weird to the animals is nightfall comes within a matter of seconds, and that's just not how they're programmed. So, nature tells them that they're supposed to go into this certain mode. It happens in an odd way, and then it's all undone minutes later.
So take the bear spray. That's my advice to you, Lee, in case the grizzly bears go crazy. That would not be a good thing. So, Tony, anything else we need to talk about?
The last bit of advice I would have is when you're trying to pick a spot to go, especially if you're going to be one of those kind of eclipse hunters that finds a spot and mentally picks a couple other spots on either side of it, so you can keep yourself mobile. That's great and wonderful, but when you're picking spots, try to stay as close to the center line as possible. You don't have to be right on the center line, anywhere plus or minus 5-10 miles off of there. The duration of eclipse is going to be just within a couple of seconds. If you get really, really close to the edges, you're kind of running a risk there of not seeing anything. Reason being, these are all the maps that you have seen are based on averages, if you will. It doesn't take into account things like the shape of the moon, the limb size, and that sort of thing. So move in a half mile or so from there just to be safe. And the other thing I would say is, be respectful of where you're going. These small towns are not going to be equipped to handle this influx of people. And even if you bring your own everything, you're still going to have somewhere to go to the bathroom. And they may not be able to handle that as well. I'm thinking about this one town in South Carolina. It is the last part of the continental United States that will see the eclipse, McLennanville, South Carolina. Everything from there on out is a national wildlife refuge. So no facilities out there. On their web page, they basically say, stay away. We're all on septic tanks. We're all on wells. We don't have the facilities to take care of you. And oh yeah, the closest emergency services is 25 miles away. And we all know, been to enough college football games in our days, you get enough people, you get 10,000 or so people in one place, and there's going to be some medical emergencies. So I feel bad for some of these small towns that are going to have their populations explode. So that's, the last bit of advice, bring your patience and be respectful of where you are.
And bring the toilet paper.
Sure. Sure.
I've seen some law enforcement agencies tweeting and passing out the advice, don't be taking selfies while you're driving. And I guarantee you something bad's going to happen. And we have learned that most people can't find their house on a map. And I have a funny feeling a large number of people, probably larger than we think, they will have no idea this is happening on Monday. And it's going to start to turn. And don't laugh. Trust me, I deal with Joe Q Public probably more than anybody else on the show here. They're not going to know what's going on. It's going to start to get dark, and they're going to freak, and they'll stop and get the law enforcement's concerned about car wrecks.
Yep.
And people doing stupid stuff where they're thinking, man, this got to be the end of the world. I'm going to get me some pictures of this, while they're driving. So I just hope nothing bad happens. But
you retweet the first one that tweets you and asks you why it's getting dark.
No, I guarantee, and it's probably not going to be on the Twitter. It's going to be on the Facebook. But anyway, just
and think about ball game traffic too. When is ball game traffic the worst? During that couple of hours where people are trickling in for the tailgate, or when it's over?
Mm-hmm. Heading up to the room. Yeah. Well, Tony, thank you. Stick around to the end of the show, we hope.
Yes, sir.
So Leah, we got interrupted there by bandwidth, but it looks like we got a good connection now. So you're working with.
Did you get that bonehead off the video game console back there?
Yeah.
They may have been watching me while this was happening.
Oh,
I was
brother.
Like, let's all we'll watch it later.
That's right. We'll watch the recording. Yeah. So Leah, you work with departments of transportation and cool things like that. We had a huge event here a few years ago. I'm sure you studied it, where our roads just went to ice in a matter of minutes, and of course Snowmageddon became Traffic-mageddon. So, talk about what you know about that event, if you do. What did we go through there? Are our theories and hypotheses behind it correct? What really occurred there?
Well, I was actually in North Dakota when this was going on. I know it was a difficult situation, a difficult forecast, and I know a lot of people got some bad rap and some, bad situations came out of all of this as people were just stranded, especially Atlanta. They got the brunt of a lot of that. And then the governor came in and said, we've got to make some changes. And I know that Georgia DOT has a different relationship now with the National Weather Service because of that. Alabama, after that, has also invested in a lot of new technology and ways to look at other types of forecasting and information, and just really investing in going out and above and beyond. We are now also forecasting for Alabama DOT, which is exciting, for being able to have a southern states. And then they also invested in some more RWIS sensors to be able to get more information to kind of help make better forecasts and better things going along with that situation that had happened. But it's still one of those to where there could be another one, but what can you do to improve that, and where can we go from here? And so they are looking at ways of getting more weather information, getting more data, and having more of a solid plan now in place for when those winter systems come through. So I'm hoping that that will lead to maybe a little bit less panic. I think a lot of the times you get that message out there over and over, but it's a lot about training the people, training the DOT, training the general public on what do we really mean when we talk about certain weather information, and what is that going to lead to, and just trying to get people to stay inside and not get out on the roads and things like that.
So there's some things you can tell us. I know you've got expensive and extensive pavement models and things like that, but just for us boots on the ground operational forecasters, what can you share with us that'll help us make, you know, better advice for our listeners and audiences out there, Leah?
Advice on more of a forecasting standpoint?
Well, yeah, like how to look for certain clues that will tell us that this situation is going to lead to ice more than snow accumulation or whatever. James, James went away, so he went to do some work for a second. So anything that would help us to communicate with our audiences better and give them better advice.
Okay, well, my advice would just be different per state that I'm like talking with, because we all know everybody's weather is different geography-wise. So a lot of times when I go out and train the DOT on how to use our products, we talk a lot more about in North Dakota, they have the issues of blow ice. So they have a lot stronger winds, and they'll get the snow piles along the side of the road, and then it'll blow the snow across the road. And it can be a beautiful sunny day, but sometimes those situations, or those 1 to 2 inches of snow that's just out of nowhere, can cause more issues on the roadway than those bigger storm systems that come in, because you don't have quite enough handle on that. So we're constantly looking at ways of improving forecasting and getting information of when the snow is blowing across the road and the sun's heated up that pavement, and then that snow sticks to that surface and can cause some icy conditions as the traffic starts to drive across that snow and compact that snow into ice.
So that might be one of the tenets we might look for right there. I guess it's not so much in the South, but we got meteorologists all over the country. So, and they're probably a lot more equipped for this than we are here in the South. But so when the sun comes out and warms the road, then that makes it easier for blowing snow to stick to it. Is that what you're saying?
Exactly. Yes. And a lot of times the other situations, depending on if the wind is blowing and there's already salt or chemical on the roadway, that also can cause the snow to stick onto that chemical that's been put on the road. So there's a lot of situations where we have to factor in what's going on, not just weather-wise, but what has already been done on the road. Have they already put chemical down, or what's going to happen after the fact? Are the winds going to increase? So we look at other things besides just that current system that's going on. What's going to happen after? Is there going to be some melting and then a refreeze situation that can cause ice on the road as well?
So Leah, when, you know, you mentioned these sensors and things that DOTs are investing in, and those are really cool. You know, at what point will some element of crowdsourcing enter into the process of feeding data back into the system? Is that already underway? Like cars sending back data like they do for Google Maps?
Well, you know, there are a lot of times where that information can be valuable. You know, more data, you're like, okay, yeah, let's be on board. Let's use that. Right now, it's more along the lines of making sure that data is accurate and clean. And we do have ways of the actual plow trucks. We get the information from the trucks themselves on several states that have trucks that are equipped with mobile data collection, MDC, and AVL, automated vehicle technology. So letting us know where those trucks are, and then what is that truck reporting. And some of the trucks, it's that person in the truck that touches, okay, the road is snow covered, the snow is falling down right now, or the road is icy, and then we've got some light snow happening or blowing snow, and they provide that information, and then they have sensors on the back of the truck that will tell how much salt or chemical that they're putting on the roads themselves, and that feeds back into us, and we use that data sometimes even within our forecasting. Freezing drizzle, very hard situation to forecast for or to know what's going on, because it can be below the radar, and there'll be a lot of times that you get erroneous data within those ARWA sites and within those airport ASOS sites. So having the actual plow truck out there and being able to look on that and say, okay, this truck is reporting a freezing drizzle, this truck is reporting something similar, and being able to know where that issue is in those areas are of concern. So we're using that information kind of as a crowdsourcing, but then we're also taking that data and going a step further with it and saying, okay, let's see who used the most chemical this entire winter. And some states take that and they budget because of that. They'll compare the analysis that we had on who had the worst winter based upon hours of blowing snow, and then hours of snowfall or actual snow on the road, and taking that maybe within the last month, the week, or the entire winter season, and comparing within what areas to have the worst based upon their salt or chemical usage.
Let me ask some nosy questions in here. So
we're talking about snow and ice.
No, you know me. I got to horn in with the good stuff. So tell me the name of the company you work for, and who are these guys?
Iteris, and they're some of the best people you're ever going to meet.
Well, who is this a publicly traded? Is this a publicly traded company? Is it private? I mean, who owns this place?
It is a publicly traded company on the NASDAQ stock exchange. And we're actually, the headquarters is located in Santa Ana, California. We've got offices throughout, and then our weather operations center is in Grand Forks, North Dakota. And so it's a 24/7 weather ops. Mm-hmm.
So you're talking about snow and ice all the time. Do you deal with the warm season stuff, flooding and severe weather and all that?
We do. We forecast year-round for a lot of agencies. A lot of times they use what we have as our summertime maintenance operation decision support, and it tells them when's the best time to go out and do chip sealing, any type of concrete repair, or anything construction-wise on the roadway. We'll set up criteria within our system based upon, okay, we're not going to go out and do these types of services if the temperature is above this, or if there is over a 40% chance of rain. So we'll set that up based upon their criteria, and then we provide them a forecast of, okay, this route is restricted for this time period because it doesn't meet the criteria that you specified. We also have other departments within our company. We've got an ag division that actually provides land surface modeling and other type models and that we have come up with that can tell a farmer, and we're actually not targeting just a farmer themselves, but more of those like Bayer, Syngenta, bigger crop companies that provide seed and retailing to farmers, and then they can actually put their logo on the app. They're just grabbing our models and our data and lets them know, kind of like a Climate Corp. There's a lot of those out there, but it lets them know what's the best fertilizer to use. What's the best time to go out and plant and harvest? And then we have a lot more models within that itself.
Hey, Leah, a question about a question on snow and ice, if you don't mind.
Okay.
So here in Raleigh, we had a number of rather famous snowmageddons, if you will, similar to what Atlanta had experienced. And I think the root cause might have been the same thing, and it was tire friction that was causing anything that fell and froze to melt and refreeze. Do any of your models take that into account?
Well, we haven't used the friction within our pavement model, but we do have ways of, there are RLIS stations that can give some type of friction reading. Now, I don't have as much information on that. I just know that they do show a friction reading or a friction number, and we can display that information, and different DOTs can make a decision upon that information on, okay, is this going to be slipperier conditions or things like that? Just another tool to have to use. But we haven't done a lot of research and stuff with the friction to utilize that directly into our model.
Yeah, that'd be interesting, because one of the findings that came out of both the last one that happened in Raleigh, where we actually had, it was a dusting is what it came down to, and we had kids staying overnight in schools because there was just gridlock everywhere. The streets turned to ice because of this. And the same thing, well, something similar happened in Atlanta, we all probably remember. And one of the outcomes of it was we need to stagger when we send people home. And the state government was looking at possibilities of sending different agencies home at different times to try and avoid these kind of problems. So that would be an interesting meteorological way of looking at it, especially if you've got that kind of data that you can grab on the ground.
Mm-hmm. They do have.
Hey, Leah.
Go ahead.
So one more, and I got to do the news here in a minute. Now, your company's not one of these bonehead companies issuing their own tornado warnings, are they?
Absolutely not.
Okay. No, because really, we got a problem. We're in Kansas. You know, they contract with AccuWeather, and they're issuing their own warnings. And so you guys are not doing that.
No, we take the National Weather Service's warnings and things that they do. We publish them on a map and into our products.
You come up with your own names?
No warning training, things like that.
So you're not naming your own winter storms or anything like that?
No, absolutely not.
Okay, I'm done. Sorry.
Right. Now, I want to get back to Kim here, but you said a magic word. Leah, do you know what the magic word you said was?
I'm not sure.
Santa Ana. That's where the Weather Fest is. Paris tomorrow. You and me are going to be talking. We're going to test your sales skills because we need your company to be exhibiting at Weather Fest.
Okay.
September 16th. Mark it down.
Okay.
All right. Kim, I know you were champing at the bit before James got all hot and bothered trying to get on the air. And
no, I actually want to follow up on a question that he started asking a little bit earlier, and that was about the different hazards that you forecast for. He had asked about summertime stuff, and you talked a little bit about that, but I'm really interested in learning a little bit more about whether you do forecasting for road weather for flooding. And the reason that I ask this is that some of the behavioral science research we've done on the really disturbing phenomenon of people driving into roads that are covered in water is that they do so because they feel like they really are just so focused on getting where they're going. And there's not a lot of information that we're putting into the space, you know, within a half-hour to hour time frame ahead of time for them to do any good planning. We just don't give advice on roads that are now or are going to be in trouble. And so if we want to help people, we need to help them to plan alternatives, and they have to know, they have to get a heads up that they need to do that. And so I'm really interested to know if you have done anything in your company with forecasting or even just live reporting flooding.
We currently do call outs for Alabama DOT, and when there is going to be a flooding problem, it's more along the lines of, you know, a flash flood warning or something within that nature. So we've done some of that. We do forecast and send some emails out within the flooding, but we don't winter weather is kind of our main focus, and then we have just some weather, regular summertime weather information, which, you know, severe weather. We have the very big severe weather type desk for Virginia. So we can still do a lot of different types of weather. I mean, our meteorologists are trained to forecast all over the United States. But as far as like any specific products or anything like that we have for flooding, it's mainly just weather consultation services that we would do more of that hand holding when flooding is an issue. And that's in the form of an email or call out. And another thing that I've kind of got spun up within the company is briefing videos. I know the National Weather Service does some of those, and I actually started doing those for DOTs. So we would, every Friday, we had several states that were interested in it, and we would send out a briefing video to them that told what the weather was going to do over the weekend. And actually Colorado got really on board with this because over the weekend, they would get a lot of traffic for skiers from Denver to Vail. So they wanted us to focus our briefing video for that particular area and then talk about within those segments of that route where it was going to be the most heavily impacted. And these are currently just for the winter time, but it doesn't mean we couldn't do something that was more of a severe weather or a flood risk or things like that.
Great.
Hey, let's take a break here. We got to do some email very quickly because Aubrey is here, and I would imagine, I have a funny feeling. I just have a feeling that she just might have a little email tonight.
Letters. We get letters. We get stacks and stacks of letters.
Oh, wait. Yes. I have letters. Let me go back to the email. Let's see. This one came in just earlier today from Steve Holmes. James has talked about the need to reach out to Latino communities. A Minneapolis group working with non-English speaking populations has produced a series of PSAs and languages spoken locally. And he gives us a link. It's a library link. Given the number of international students in Alabama, this might have an application there. And also the local Red Cross made a tornado preparedness video in Somali. It's not just a big issue. Southwest Missouri has a community of Somalis working at a chicken processing plant. So, and I'm sure those aren't just the only areas that have those kind of populations. So thanks for sending that in, Steve. Let's see, Sam Ryan, sorry, almost got it mixed up. Sam Ryan sent in, just wanted to recommend a couple of guests for the show. A scientist named Walter Brown. He has some very interesting theories on climate change and other areas of science. His take on climate change, and he provides a link. I think it's different than anything I've ever read before. Not sure about how viable the theory is, but could be an interesting topic.
Chemtrails.
And then also...
Wait a minute. Hang on here.
Chemtrails.
It has to be official.
I think all the Chemtrails people are now flat earthers. That's my theory.
I didn't even know there were flat earthers.
They've got a convention in Raleigh next week. Come on down. You can meet them.
Oh, my gosh. I had no idea.
Oh, brother.
Let's broadcast live from there.
Oh, yeah.
I'll just swing over after the eclipse.
What do they think of the eclipse? How do they explain it?
Funny story. There was one in line behind me at the where I was getting some photocopies.
What do they wear, badges?
Of some astronomy things. Well, no, they were getting their posters mounted for their big convention, and one of them started in on me. I won't go into it.
Chemtrails.
Wow. All right. Also, Dave.
Going down the tube.
Also, David Dahl, chief meteorologist at KSTP. He just completed his 40th year in the business and has many fascinating stories. Ooh, we like stories. And he also gave some contact information. So I'm sure Bill has those already written down.
Mm-hmm.
This from Clyde Hughes. Let's see. Show 603 and Chitterlings, the pig shows. The most recent show with Dr. Curry was excellent, even with the glitches. I appreciate your including the phone interview about the audio cast. James, your humility and open discussions in the midst of controversy is inspiring. It seems that humility in meteorology is hard to come by. That might be an understatement. Thanks for carrying the torch. However, I must admit to James' reference to the Do the Pigs Have Earwax show stole my attention. With Kevin, there needs to be a pre-show compilation or maybe a comedy index of all the shows. Let's see. We'll get the interns on that, all 12 of them.
Yeah, exactly. We'll put the interns on that project. That's a great project, too.
I often reference the shows that way. For example, we might say, what was the show it was where JB had the microphone adjustment situation, or what show had the chitterlings, or when did Aubrey have fogged up the camera lens?
That's a magical
building.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, Clyde, for the laughs. And Richard Cook sends us an email naming heat waves. They really don't have to name everything, do we? And I guess this is from weather.com. Red hot temperatures ease as Europe heat wave cools. Oh, it's a Lucifer heat wave.
That sounds appropriate.
Wow. All right. And then we got a listener survey response from Trey Fulbright from Fort Worth, Texas. Learn about the show through a link shared on Twitter, and YouTube displayed this program as something that may interest me. And I hope you don't regret it, Trey.
You can't trust those YouTube recommendations.
Don't click on that video you think you might like.
Yeah.
Mesoscale wants us to talk more about mesoscale features that can make or break a forecast, severe weather and winter weather. That's a good topic.
Just hang around for the next week and you'll see it happen.
Perfect. And Rod Reinman, also who's a trained NWS storm spotter for KLOT area. I would like to see either Chief Meteorologist Tom Skilling or Dr. Greg Forbes on the weather show. Be nice if you can get them both to appear on the show. Topics, lots of good topics. And let's see, I know you said Tom Skilling was on before, and I believe you've had Forbes on?
Yep, had him on twice, and Skilling back in show 37, like 9.5 years ago.
Oh, so we should have him. It's
What
almost
time to have him back on the show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The 10-year rule.
All right, so that's the email that I have. If you have an email for us, send it to email@weatherbrains.com. We'd love to hear your guest suggestions with contact information, show suggestions, what you like about the show. Go ahead and fill out one of our listener survey responses on the website weatherbrains.com, and we will likely read your emails. Also love getting some of those fun links. You can always submit those at email@weatherbrains.com. Follow us on the Twitter and the Facebook. Just be careful what you click on.
Here's one of my favorite comedy moments. JB, did you see this one today? Indian girls plow fields naked in attempt to bring rain.
No, I didn't see it.
You've never done this, have you, during a drought?
Yes.
You have plowed fields naked.
So hot. 16, and I was just so hot.
It was the 1952 heat wave.
I was just so hot. I was just so hot. Just so hot. It was a black field of cotton. So hot.
Oh, see, we got the best. We got the best listeners in the world. These guys are producers. They're awesome. And Bill Murray, on that note, I got to go top the weather here at the 10 o'clock news. Which
earworm of the night.
Well, I'll never get that one out of my head. That's right. So Leah, what was the now that we get Span out of here? What was it really like to be an intern for him?
Well, he made us do all the hard work, including eating all of the cake that he got after going to every kid talk, for all the schools. So one thing that I knew as being an intern was when he went to go talk to my sister's school, I told them, don't get him a cake. He brings the cakes, makes all the interns eat them all the time. Get him some barbecue. He loves barbecue. He can take it home and feed his family. So that's what the route that they went. So I felt pretty good knowing the inside scoop on getting the cake versus the barbecue. So
that's a good story. So anyway, Aubrey, anything you want to ask before you have to run?
I'm sure Tony covered it. I was going to ask him about the I think they're called the pearls and stuff like that. When the
Bailey's beads.
So if you talked about that, then I will just go back and listen to it myself, because that was one of the questions that I had.
Awesome. So Tony,
have a good night, guys. I gotta go.
Careful. Good to see you. I'm glad you.
Bye.
So Tony, if I take a colander, am I going to get that pinhole effect? Like
you will. It'll be awfully cool too. So the colander will work, and my favorite is looking at the base of a tree, looking at the light streaming through the branches and the leaves. You get hundreds of little eclipses below. It's really quite pretty. That's what you take pictures of.
That's right. That's right. All right, Camry, what other amazing pearls of wisdom have you got for us tonight?
Well, I have a question. If we have a couple of minutes that
we can go all night. Except I have to get up at 4 o'clock and drive to the middle of Alabama tomorrow. So
well, I thought this was something that might maybe it's really in the line of fire of Leah's work, but everybody could think about. Leah, in your work forecasting for road weather, have you been a part of any conversations about a potential future with driverless cars and what that might look like, the intersection of forecasting and what your business might look like in that future?
Ooh, interesting question.
Yeah. So I don't know a lot directly, but I've sat on within a lot of different conferences. We'll go, and that is definitely a hot topic these days. And how long is it going to take to get there? And it's definitely going to get there. It's just we got to get the data going, and what's, how can we use the data, and really what can come of this. There's been a lot of interesting things talking about it within, do we need sensors on a windshield wiper? And getting that information, what would that really mean for us? And a lot of times people would think, okay, yeah, sensors on a windshield wiper. When that's activated, that means that the rain's going to hit the windshield. It's got to be raining or precipitating outside, snowing or something. But in a lot of places, you can have it snowing and the wind will blow and you don't need to activate those wipers. And is that really going to give you any information, So, but as far as the just driving those cars without anybody in them and how to forecast for that, it's not something I want to take on, that's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I'm curious about everybody's thoughts on this, but I can foresee a number of challenges. I can imagine, for example, if you have a severe weather situation and there's a driverless car or set of trucks, going down a highway toward a storm, are they going to be immediately routed away from it? Who makes that decision? Is that something where we as a weather enterprise are going to know that there are particular thresholds that cars can or can't tolerate, they're designed for? And, if you're a person who's in a car and it just diverts, at what point do you have decision-making authority? And I can see there being some really interesting challenges when you take the driver out of the driver's seat and you have the car making more of the decisions. I can see our field playing a role in shaping some of those choices. I think it's something that's coming, and I wonder what you all foresee. In a world with driverless cars, what do you think that could look like?
Right. Anyone else want to jump on this as well?
But we shouldn't be having turn around, don't drown anymore if we have good information, at least from a macro standpoint. But then sometimes drivers see conditions that we haven't been able to warn for.
And before we even get there, one thing I would like to see is if we, especially with this data that you're pulling in from the roads, from these trucks that are on the ground there, maybe not during winter weather, but during flooding conditions. Why can't we feed this data into Google Maps so people get automatically rerouted and don't even come upon the flooding conditions? It seems like something we could do today.
Well, here's a question for you. Do we know the flooding conditions are there? Do we always know the flooding conditions are there? Do we have detection technologies for flooding that are that good?
Can we predict? I mean, we've got enough of these flood sensors all over everywhere. We know where the roads tend to flood. Can you put 2 to 2 together and at least come up with a risk factor and feed that into a Google Maps or something like that?
You can probably try. I know that's something the Weather Service has been interested in doing as they develop experimental impacts catalogs to facilitate some of their decision support services for the purposes of public safety messaging. They're very interested in trying to do that. I can think of only a few places where that's even been tried, and I think we should not underestimate the enormous challenge that it'll be in terms of observations needed to fill that system. So when I look at the driverless car future, I see things like that and think we had better have on these cars some equipment to detect a road that they should not traverse because the people aren't going to be paying attention. And there could be some real significant challenges if cars are driving into adverse conditions that we don't even really detect very well.
Right. I definitely think you're still going to have that forecaster aspect, just because how accurate are those sensors going to be on those vehicles? Or, even, why do we have forecasters to begin with for areas in between ARWA stations? Because that is just for one point, and this is going to be for a moving vehicle or for a moving situation. So we're still going to have to look at everything as a whole and not just focus on that one point. And I really think taking in all of that information and just figuring out how can we quality check that data and utilize the data, and a lot of different tests within that.
Are there sensors already that'll tell you water depth on the road on a car? Obviously we don't want to sacrifice the first car that drives into it, but you can see where water is beginning to build up. Maybe hydroplaning occurs.
You need a control.
Yeah, we lose the first one.
Yeah.
But what about utilizing the cameras on cars? You've got backup cameras. What if a car also had a forward-facing camera, and being able to detect, what's going on that roadway based upon that camera, and someone else being able to click on that car or utilize that camera? We have cameras on plow trucks right now, and that gives us, hey, another place to click on, kind of like a mobile ROS, to be able to see what's going on in that location. And of course, not every camera is going to always work 100%, but having that extra bit of information.
Hey, can you stream those cameras? Because I think of so many different broadcast mets that, broadcasters in general that put cars out on the road to show it snowing as they drive. Why not just pull streams off of these trucks that are already out there and can actually handle the roads?
Or then have the camera inside the car, and then it's one of those TV shows where you get caught singing your song or something, and they throw it on some TV show. I can't
truck karaoke. I like it.
Yeah. Watch that.
Did James ever make you drive around with Brian Peters in the Storm Chaser, Leah? When you were here?
Yes, I did get a chance to do that a couple of times.
Well, we actually observed him singing on the live stream the other day. I don't think he knew that anybody was listening, so we had quite a laugh while we were watching that. Kim, what else you got to add?
Well, I'll add, just to complete that thought, that the reason I bring it up, and this might just be something interesting for people who are interested in the automated vehicles discussion, there was a bill that passed the House today, and it was to allow for 100,000 experimental vehicles to essentially violate our current safety standards, which are all based on human drivers doing different things, so they can test automated vehicles. So be aware that they're going to be out on the road, and these tests are going to start. And I really am interested to see, as that unfolds, I really think weather is going to be one of the biggest challenges. So stay tuned. Something to look out for. It's going to be a really interesting development, and it's going to change a lot for our industry and for everything. So just want to complete that thought. Otherwise, I think that was my last pressing question for both of our excellent guests.
Outstanding. So Kim, we'll start with you. Picks of the week. How about, do you have a pick of the week for us this week?
Yep, my pick of the week, I'm going to be sending you the link, is if you guys hadn't seen this with all the talk of the eclipse, I thought that it was marvelous that some enterprising person overlaid the eclipse path with the locations of all the Waffle Houses across the country. So while you're considering where you want to be and being very close to that center line, is such an important consideration. Also be thinking about where you're going to be when you get hungry and want some smothered covered, grits with your smothered covered sun. So I think that was brilliant, and I'll be posting the link to that now.
And we recommend you eat there after the eclipse.
Yeah. Or you just sit in the parking lot, watch the eclipse, and then go inside and have
Exactly. All right. I got a feeling every parking lot from here to Tacoma is going to be full. Tony, what's your pick of the week?
So it will come as no surprise that my pick of the week is going to be eclipse2017.nasa.gov. Has absolutely everything you need. It's got the maps you can click on and get the local circumstances. Make sure you know that you're looking at UTC time there. So you need to subtract appropriately so you get your local times. Please, please, please look at the safety information there and make sure you're safely viewing this and safely traveling as well. And I hope everybody has clear skies. I know we won't, but hopefully the majority of us will.
Says Tony, I saw an app called the Solar Eclipse Timer app, and it looked pretty cool. Have you seen that app or any others that you recommend to kind of talk in your ear during the eclipse?
Yeah, that one was kind of attractive because it does it will give you countdowns and things like that, which will allow you to pay attention to what you're doing, because you're going to have the glasses on. You're not going to be able to look at your phone. So you need something that counts down. I've not actually checked that particular one out, but there's a couple of them out there. There's so many of them out there, I would struggle to spend a nickel on any of them. There's plenty of free ones to pick from.
Outstanding. All right. And my pick of the week, I'm gonna tout our friend Tim Vasquez. He's been a good friend of the show over the years. He does a great weather video every night of the week. And so wanted to pick one of his books because I think his books are great. And he sent me one this past week, Weather Analysis and Forecasting Handbook. That's one of the best ones. So if you get a chance, get over to Tim's website. He's going to be on the show in a few weeks. We're looking for that, but look for Weather Graphics Technologies, and he's got a whole series of books that you should download. And if you get a chance, I hear the rumor is he's actually going to time his show so that it dovetails into WeatherBrains on Monday night. So you watch his show and come right over here. So we wanted to give him a little bit of a tout here tonight. So
I'll see Mondays.
Must see. That's right. Keep all the weather. We can get the weather. Maybe we get the Weather Channel to move Dr. Shepard over on to Monday night. So we'll have a night of weather. So Kim, anything else you want to add before we go tonight?
Think that I'm good.
I think maybe James and I will get you added to all the emails and the links this week.
That would be wonderful. Yeah, it would be great to not be at the last minute trying to text you and derail you from actually being part of the show to keep passing me links.
Well, it would seem like I wasn't so terribly excited that you were coming on, even though I was the one who was so terribly excited to get you on here. So I will do a better job from here on out. It's just been extremely crazy and busy on all fronts around here the last few weeks.
Yeah, I can definitely understand. Life gets that way. Absolutely. Now, it might be a little bit crazy in the coming days with our new hurricane. Is that right?
We just got Hurricane Gert tonight, our second. Gert shouldn't cause any problems for us, I don't think. Tony, you think?
You're asking the wrong guy. That's your department.
Oh yeah, you're the astronomer. I think. Yeah. So I think Gert. Are you seeing something I don't see, Tony, that I don't know about?
No, I hope it stays offshore and doesn't cause us any problems. Because I was looking at Bragg Panovich's map where he overlaid absolutely every storm track of every model, maybe for the past century, and it was the spaghetti mess covering the entire continental United States.
Oh yeah, it's just a matter of time, and we're sitting on this unbelievable streak of consecutive days without a major hurricane landfall in the United States. It's well above 4,000 now. I forget what the number is, but it's far and away the record. It's got to come to an end at some point. Any thoughts on 91L? Kim, are you watching the tropics at all?
You know, a little bit, not a lot, and I know it's really early to speculate on it, but I'm really just keeping my fingers crossed that Gert doesn't do anything, again, like you were saying, to disrupt the beautiful, site we should be seeing in the coming days. Looks like it shouldn't be a big problem. But I know there had been some conversation about around that latitude where that disturbance lies, the waters have been quite warm. So I need to catch up on my tropics news. I feel like there's a lot of potential for things that are passing through that area and coming toward us to cause some disruption. So I guess that's what's going on.
So Leah, being a girl from Fayette, Alabama, do you still watch tropical environment frequently?
I do occasionally, but I'm pretty landlocked in North Dakota to where
yeah, you're safe there, I think. No Category 5 coming your way. How's your severe weather season been up there this year?
There's been some pretty good storms. I actually go storm chasing. Me and my fiance, I actually got engaged during one of the storms this year. It was June 12th, and we were down in western Nebraska, and he proposed under a mesocyclone that dropped a tornado. So yes, of course, all meteorologists' dreams right there. But it was beautiful.
Romantic.
Great. Yeah.
Every little girl's dream.
Yeah.
But yeah, we've had some pretty decent storms that have been in North Dakota and South Dakota. I saw all my tornadoes this year more in western Nebraska, but there's been some really beautiful structure storms. Actually, if you check out, I'll send a link here, furiousskies.smugmug.com. I have a buddy who is a meteorologist at the National Weather Service in Bismarck. He takes some beautiful pictures, and that's his webpage. And so he's storm chasing. He's taking some rural North Dakota stuff. I mean, he's doing probably some eclipse pictures as well. But just check out his page. It's got a lot of great stuff, and it can showcase some of the beauty of North Dakota and South Dakota.
Yeah, that's a great place, especially later in the year. So, Leah, I didn't warn you about picks of the week, but do you have a pick to share with us other than that?
We'll just do that one.
Yeah, that counts.
Or you can go to our, iteris.com and check out what our company does and get a little bit more information about who I work for.
So how did you get interested in weather, Leah?
Well, back in the day, I actually used to watch James as a youngster, and I took my little black and white TV when we would have severe weather and go get in our neighbor's bubble, and I would watch James on that and actually relay the information. So that kind of got me into the whole weather and science and just getting involved in it. And I always wanted to do broadcast meteorology, but just never got my foot in the door once I graduated. Within that, besides a few internships and things, so I ended up traveling up to North Dakota and getting involved more on the private sector side and doing the weather modification, and then working for Iteris. And now I play kind of several hats within training, and I've done a little forecasting, and then now more of a sales role, and I really love it. I get to travel a lot, and I get to be involved in weather without having to get too much of the shame of the public and coming at you from all sides. So we still get our issues from time to time, and there's always those people you feel like you can never please, but it's not quite as open source with being just that forward-facing person within the media.
Well, that's outstanding. We've really enjoyed having you on the show tonight. Thank you so much for joining us, and good luck to you as you travel back to North Dakota and get ready to see the eclipse. I guess it'll be in Wyoming.
Yes, western Wyoming, over in the Tetons.
Well, that's fantastic. So thank you for joining us tonight. Tony, you're hiding behind a map over there.
I am. I'm going to try and top Kim here with my my map. So this is information to know if you're traveling into the path of the eclipse. You don't know whether to order a soda, a pop, or a Coke.
Wow, this is
data at its finest.
James is gonna love that one for sure.
That's a really narrow area where soda is preferred. That's really funny.
That's because it's wrong.
We need another one that has like all the best barbecue joints along the line of the eclipse.
Now, that would have been a good website to do. We had 4 years to think about this. We should have thought about that.
Yeah, I've got a Starbucks one too. That's kind of utilitarian as well.
I noticed. I just kind of looked at hotel rates yesterday just to see, if I changed my Chase location, because I booked my hotel room, 2.5 years ago. In Hopkinsville, Kentucky, there was one room at the Hampton Inn, and it was $985.
Now, Bill, I've heard stories of hotels being built specifically for that. You heard any of that?
No, that would be insanity. And we do hear of crazy things like that. People build them for football teams and things like that.
And Olympics.
Well, with Airbnb being so big now, how about people renting out their house and making a lot of money on that?
Go for thousands.
Oh yeah,
go somewhere else if it's something you're not interested in.
Well, I hope everyone has a safe and very visible eclipse this coming Monday. We're really excited about it. It's going to be a fun event. Thank everybody tonight for joining and listening and paying attention and participating. It's going to be a lot of fun. WeatherBrains, of course, is the weekly netcast about weather. We've been doing it for 10 years now. Hard to believe. This is show 604, and we have fun every week doing it. We certainly aren't getting rich doing it, but we certainly have a good time. And tonight, we want to thank our resident astronomer, Tony Rice, and Leah for joining us. Leah Daly, thank you for joining us tonight from North Dakota. And Kim, it's great to have you all the way to the end. I haven't gotten to hear a show with you on, or at least I haven't gotten to be on a show with you all the way through because I get called away for some other job, it seems like always.
No, this was a delight. Thank you again so much for having me. I really enjoyed being on.
And we almost stuck around long enough for Span to come back, but we'll probably miss him by about 5 to 10 minutes. But till next week, when I forget who the guest is, let's check real quick and see. Next week, Craig Fugate, and I won't probably get to be a part of that one, but Craig Fugate, the former director of FEMA, will be with us, and that'll be an incredible show. So, Kim, you're in charge that night.
Oh my gosh.
So
you're going to be on the WeatherBrains jet, aren't you?
So that'll be a great show. We'll have Leslie Chapman Henderson from Flash the following week, and then Mike Gerber will join us on September 5th talking about the WEA. And we've got to call into the Climacell folks, and I don't know if I've moved that from tentative to definite or not. I'll have to look about Shimon Elkabetz joining us, but we'll see about that. And then on Monday the 18th of September, we'll be live from the RON at the National Weather Association, and that the Research Operations Nexus. That's going to be a very fun event. But until next week, when we'll all be sharing stories about the eclipse, hope you have a great week, and we'll see you next Monday night.
Thanks.
Thank you, Leah. Thank you for
Thanks.
staying up late and missing your family time with us. We appreciate it.
It's okay.
And did you have good luck finding the wedding dress today?
Well, I narrowed it down to 2, so we shall see. I think it might be okay to go and look at some in North Dakota. So, but at least the family got to help me narrow down to kind of what I'm looking for. But
a lot of fun. Well, anyway, thank you for joining us, Kim. Good night, Tony. See you.
Nice.
Cheers.
Bye, everybody.
Nope, they're done. It's a wrap. Hello, hello, good evening, good evening, good evening. I love these simulcasts. We have Song of the Night on Periscope and WeatherBrains on YouTube. Thank you guys. Tony was great. Great to have Leah on the show. And we're going to sign off WeatherBrains. We'll see you guys next Monday night, 9:30 Eastern, 8:30 Central. And we're going to sign off. We'll see you guys then. Thanks for watching. Have a great weekend. God bless.